Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for taking some time out to join us today. Very exciting briefing. Hopefully you've all received your hampers and you've got your coffees charged. Yeah, today we're going to be doing our briefing with Juniper, and I'll do a quick intro to the speakers shortly. What we're going to do, if you've got any questions during the presentation, please put them into the Q&A box. We'll cover those off at the end. But as you have questions during the presentation, please put them in there. So on to the agenda for today. So I'm going to do a quick intro of our speakers, and now I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to be talking through what normal is going to be, or probably somewhat of the unknown for the coming weeks and months. And then we're going to be handing over to Phil to go through the meat of today's briefing, which is around the network for the next decade and some of the cool stuff that Juniper have been doing in the wireless space. I'll do a quick wrap up and then on to the Q&A. So it's great to get questions coming in from our audience as well. Make sure we answer any burning questions you've got. So that's the plan. On to the speakers for today. Myself, for anyone that doesn't know me, Shane Taylor, CEO, co-founder of Mobliciti. Delighted to be hosting the session today. I'm also joined by my CTO, Andy Brown, and then our guest speaker for today is Phil Keeley from Juniper. So Phil can do a bit more of an intro on Juniper when we get to his piece. So that's the three speakers for today. And for anyone that doesn't know us, I think most of you do, but just in case you don't, here's a very, very quick recap on who Mobliciti are and what we're all about. So we're 12 years in the making, focused exclusively on cloud and mobile IT, which pretty much covers just about everything moving forward now, but it was why we were set up all those years ago. We're predominantly in legal and finance, but we do have some customers outside of that, generally large global enterprise, and we deliver an award-winning range of services, including managed services, to hopefully help you bridge the gap as you go through pretty dramatic change, some of the fastest change we've arguably seen in IT. So that's all I'm going to say about us for now. I think hopefully most of you know us. As far as the services, just to show where wireless fits in, we deliver across a number of services really built from the mobile device. It's really the foundation of where we came from, along with cloud adoption and security. And we think much more now it's about the user-centric management rather than central infrastructure that people just traverse to get to applications. So we'll talk more, or Phil will talk more about user-centric wireless, which is why we thought missed when we saw it a couple of years ago now, maybe 3 years ago now, that we were so excited about it. But there's a range of services that we deliver across the top of that, and more and more we'll deliver that as a managed service and run it for you so you don't have to. So not for everyone, but for a lot of people that might be the way forward. So that's all I'm going to say on the services, just to put us into where we're coming from. Network solutions is definitely where we're focused for today. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Andy to set the scene.
Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. So yeah, the idea of the presentation today is really, as we know, it's there's a lot going on at the moment, and I think one of the big things is obviously, are we now heading back to normal, or is this actually a bit more of a kind of a step into the unknown with users starting to return to the office? And the reason we kind of say that is it might seem really obvious, but rewind 12 months, an awful lot has actually changed, both individually and collectively across the IT space in a lot of organizations. Obviously, everybody was sent home at the beginning of the pandemic. And there was this kind of sense that people were kind of shipped out of the office, given a laptop and kind of sent off to work on a VPN or work directly into cloud services, etc. And the way that they actually started to work has dramatically shifted in the last 12 months. There's lots of studies and lots of feedback kind of saying, it's been the biggest adoption of change by end users, arguably like 10 years worth of change in a few months kind of thing. And they've really started to, the staff themselves have shifted in the way that they're actually working, and it might seem really obvious, but there's a lot of what is now very much endpoint centric, laptop first. There's obviously been this explosion of video collaboration, and there's also been a really interesting kind of network architecture approach, a rapid adoption of, if you like, a complete bypass of the traditional WAN model. Your users have effectively been living on VPN connections, or indeed split tunnels and going direct into cloud services, etc., just to get their jobs done. And obviously that's the amalgamation of what's been going on over the last 12 months. I thought a nice quote that we had from one of our customers was, increasingly work is just something you do. It's not a place you go. And that, interestingly, they view the office increasingly, it's just work. The office becomes this hub that different places, different collections of people will congregate to get on with work as is required going forwards. And so it kind of all comes into this, this point that arguably why we're here today, which is, the staff are coming back, people are preparing for the return. And what's interesting in the background is, depending on who you talk to, there's people starting to look at whether there might actually be a massive spike in demand to come back to the office initially, with it tailing off, or is it going to be, a 50-50 split? There's a lot of unknowns in terms of the demand. But the point we try to make here is all of this change that's happened in the last 12 months away from the office environment and the corporate network is about to hit the network for the first time. And there have been some pretty fundamental step changes in the demands on Wi-Fi and your traditional WAN design. That's all about to hit. It's a step change in the way things are going to be done. In the background, we've seen all kinds of work around, looking at the location of your staff in your building, all sorts of things. You've got people looking at, do we need to do distancing? How are we going to reorganize where people sit? Are we going to move away from fixed offices to a more of a flexible working approach? All of these things tend to lead to more demands on connectivity that moves around with you, or obviously wireless. We're also seeing, things like companies looking at, well, we might as well, let's take the opportunity to take out desk phones, for example, and we'll move to a soft client, which is a great idea, don't get me wrong, but you're putting more and more business critical services onto devices that are predominantly connected to the wireless by default, in particular if they're not docked. And you've got all the interesting things that start to happen with things like, voice call quality, video collaboration quality, etc. All going to start being things that are key metrics that are going to have to be considered. And of course, the other thing that's interesting in all of this is another customer pointed this out to us. One of the big things that they're worried about is it's not just their staff who've changed the way they work. Obviously, meeting spaces for guests and people coming into your office spaces, all those people who are coming in, they've also changed the way they work and the tools they use as well. And there is a a growing concern not just about what staff will do, but also about how guests are going to interact with the network as well. Because one of the things that's really starting to come through when we talk to customers is users' expectations have been set. The baseline for their expectations of how technology will work when they return to the office is obviously based on the first time they've used it. So if you talk about something like Zoom or Teams, the ability to do video collaboration, the perception they have of how it should work is based on their current experience in the home, which is a massively distributed network. By definition, you've effectively built an enormous SD-WAN by default in some ways, in terms of the way your clients are connecting into these cloud services. Now, for some users, obviously, they'll probably be extremely keen to get back to the office because they've been having a bad time of it at home. But for a lot of people, actually, you know, Zoom and Teams and all these sort of tools have worked well. And that's something that is obviously then brings to the forefront, if you like, user experience. And one of the things that you know has often been talked about, in particular once we start talking about users shifting to wireless, using laptop devices, is you don't want your end users to actually be frustrated with the experience that they're getting when they're in the office. And there is a you know, growing concern about some of the areas where you know, how will we know, for example, not just about, you don't want your users to be your early warning system, if you like, or your reporting system, alerting system for, you know, up-down events. But more importantly, how are individual users getting on? You know, it's actually in some ways more frustrating for an individual user if something is just unreliable or patchy than it is if something is actually down. When it's down, it's a problem that is someone else's. And obviously, whilst it's frustrating, it's out of the way. If it's in and out, or it's actually impacting that, you know, that individual user's ability to work, this is where the problem starts to build. And so for us, the ability to monitor individual user experience is paramount. And as a managed service provider, we find that whilst we can deliver services, you know, we do manage wireless services across a variety of different platforms. But what is particularly interesting for us as a managed service provider is the ability to provide user experience-based monitoring and alerting using the Juniper Mist platform. And so I thought it would be useful now to hand over to Phil to actually go through in more detail about how the actual technology works and how that it's able to really bring to life user experience monitoring in particular from underlying wireless technology and the wider network. Phil.
Apologies, my mouse decided to stop working at the critical moment.
A dramatic pause.
Panic in the eyes, that's the trouble with the video. Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a quick conversation with you guys today. My name is Phil Keeley. I'm one of the technical resources within the Juniper environment. I came across as part of the Mist acquisition, and I've been in Wi-Fi for about 25 years. So I've kind of worked for most of the organizations out there. What I'm going to be talking to you today about is the network for the next decade. This is really using AI to actually drive the network for the next decade, but also using the ability of Juniper and Mist and all the companies that have come together under the Juniper banner, including most recently 128 Technology, to use the cloud-enabled and API-driven platforms to tie things together in a way that's never been done before. And the AI is a very common phrase that you'll have heard from pretty much every vendor out there today. It's not something you can bolt on afterwards. It has to be put in from the very basics, from the very start of the company. And that's really where Mist as was came into being. These are the guys who started the company. And they all came from Cisco. They were running the Cisco wired and wireless business for the best part of 10 years. In fact, Bob Friday here was the guy who invented the airspace controller, which is the Cisco 5500 that has only just gone end of life. So, you know, these guys have been in the wireless business for a very, very long time. Inside Cisco, they wanted to start a new company. They wanted to take the ideas that they bought from Meraki, but to do it better. Meraki is still 2007 technology. It's still servers just hosted in a cloud, in a data center. It's not a true modern cloud. So the only way they could actually do that was to start again, to throw everything away and start from scratch. That's the only way you can build an AI-driven network. Cisco were not keen for them to do that inside the Cisco environment, so they left and formed another organization. The key funder at the time was Cisco, as well as the standard Valley investors. That being said, they rapidly started taking away some of the key customers from Cisco with this new technology, with the MIST platform. So the relationship obviously with Cisco is less than it was. They used to rebrand and resell some of our products. The Beacon Point was a MIST product. And obviously since the Juniper acquisition, they're not our friends at all anymore, which is fine. We're rapidly growing and rapidly taking their lunch anyway, so it's all good. But effectively what we're showing here is that the people who started this organization have a huge amount of experience. I've actually been in Wi-Fi since 95, 96, which is long before it was ever called Wi-Fi. So we hopefully know what we're talking about on that side. But Wi-Fi is just the first thing we wanted to fix. There was other things in the networking industry that we really wanted to sort out. So who's actually believing the story? So some pretty big organizations, the Amazons, the Walmarts, and the people you see on this slide are not one or two access points in a trial. These are big deployments. So in the UK, we're pretty much 70% of the way through the Dunelm implementation. We're just about to start Tesco. Pretty much every Ocado facility is running. ThoughtWorks is a big software development house. They write the Trainline app, for example, if you've heard of that. So there's some big organizations here, and they are genuinely in true rollout, not just trying a couple of APs. So the four sort of pillars of why people come to on the Juniper MIST experience, and the primary is user experience, taking it away from I can ping the access points, I can ping the switches, my network must be fine, to actually how is the end user's experience on that network, measuring hundreds of different pieces of information from a technical angle on the networking side, because that's what you can measure, but translating those into what an end user actually experiences. So rather than measuring round trip times and ping loss and all that sort of thing, we're looking at how long does it take a user to connect to the network. And one of the big problems we have with wireless, and most management platforms out there really struggle with this, is wireless is a pretty unreliable way of getting data from point A to point B. If you've gone from a situation where you had a wired connection to your switch, which had a wired connection to the router, which you paid for an MPLS circuit to your data center, you could pretty much guarantee every single packet across that network and how long it would take from the client to the data center. We're now in a situation where the first of that hop is wireless, which is a big hub, effectively. Everyone's fighting for the bandwidth. And the link to the data center or to the cloud now is over typically an SD-WAN platform over the internet. So in order to understand what's going on across those two less than perfect links, very fast, but nowhere near as predictable, you have to measure the user experience impact. There's no point saying, well, we lost a few packets along the way. Well, we always do. If you're going to report on that, you're going to have a log file full of issues. What we want to understand is actually, did the user even notice? Now, wireless loses 10, 15% of all of the packets you send, but the protocols, everything's designed to deal with that. So in order to build these baselines and understand what's going on, you can't be monitoring every access point and every client 24 hours a day. Well, actually you can with AI, and that's what the AI is doing. It's doing machine learning, and it's doing predictive analysis of what's actually happening. And we're doing this right inside the access point. We're not tunneling everything back to a big box somewhere on site. This is all happening inside the access point. The access point is making the decisions as to whether the user experiences are matching your requirements, your specifications. And with the AI, because we can then automatically baseline every application across every access point, across every client device, across every client type, we can spot anomalies, and we can actually raise alerts, not when things have failed, but when things are starting to go outside of the specification that you as the end customer actually put down. That's all made possible by what's called a microservices cloud. You've probably never heard of this thing, but that's what Mist is based on. And what this is effectively is the same operating mechanism of Netflix, of LinkedIn, of Microsoft. These are all running in a microservices environment. So rather than just taking your wireless LAN controller as Meraki have done and putting it in a centralized data center, we don't own any hardware in the cloud. We run natively on Amazon or Google or whatever, and we simply install software in the cloud. So we have well over 250 different microservices operating, and there are hundreds of copies of each one. So when we do an upgrade, which we do every week, every Wednesday, there's new software into the cloud. So bug fixes, new security threats, anything like that, we fix them very, very quickly. So that microservices cloud gives us huge amounts of scalability and very, very rapid feature velocity as well. So those are the first three. The last one at the top right here, digital engagement. This has been part of our portfolio since the very beginning. We wanted to do indoor locationing in a much better way than has been available in the past. We've always tried to do Wi-Fi locationing, but Wi-Fi is not really the most accurate. It's trying to transmit data, not work out the location of a device. So although we still do that, we've now moved across to Bluetooth Low Energy, which is the sort of industry standard way of doing these things now. And that's built into the majority of our products. So the access points have this capability built into them, and it allows us to track certainly mobile devices, devices running applications, and also even ID badges, tags, so pieces of equipment or people. So we can track where those people are on a minute-by-minute basis. What that has led to, of course, in the most recent environments is some fairly significant COVID capability within the platform, both alerting when zones become overpopulated, but also providing the ability to understand who someone has been near over the last 2 weeks. So when someone is unfortunately diagnosed, we can then ask the system who else has been in contact with that person over the last 2 weeks inside the workspace. So rather than taking out an entire shift at a large warehouse, you can just take out the 4 or 5 people that the guy happened to have lunch with on a couple of days. So a much improved flow. And we're seeing some organizations sort of demanding this type of technology to get people back into the office, to have confidence that they are not being exposed. So the Juniper journey effectively is certainly, we started in the wireless space from the Mist acquisition. Very, very quickly, that was 2 years ago now, very quickly we brought the wired platform of Juniper underneath the Mist banner. So Juniper driven by Mist AI is the kind of the catchphrase, but effectively we now completely manage all of the Juniper EX switches within the platform. The next step is the WAN, so the SRX platform, and now the 128T second generation SD-WAN platform. They are we have visibility of those now inside the cloud, and we will be taking over control of those over the next 12 months. And then again, moving into the data center. So the whole principle here is client to cloud visibility. So to be able to understand that user experience, and where that user experience degrades, understand exactly where in that data path that problem has occurred, and where possible, fix it. We're not just sending you alerts, we're trying to repair and improve things continuously. The open and programmable cloud, both the Juniper and the Mist hardware is all API driven. It's API first, in GUI and interface second. So everything we're doing can be automated. So if you saw BP's logo on the previous slide, we're talking about rolling 18,000 sites out to BP at the rate of up to 50 a day. Now you can't do that with someone sitting in front of a screen dragging and dropping on a GUI. You need automation for that, and that's exactly what the Mist platform provides. And then the AI-driven operations and support. We use our own AI. We use our own capabilities to ask the system when a customer raises any sort of question. And the AI engine that we have, which we'll introduce you to in a moment, is learning all the time. When we ask it a question it doesn't know the answer to, we don't go and reprogram it. We actually teach it. It's a weird world of AI. It's moving very, very fast. So Marvis is our name for our AI engine. This is an additional feature over and above everything else we do, where you can actually ask the system questions. Why is my Zoom call breaking up? What's wrong with the wireless today? Why is the switching, why is the switch running slowly? You can ask it questions. You can even ask it, questions that have nothing to do with our network. You can ask it how to configure Cisco authentication engines, because that is related to what we do. So, and every time someone asks the system a question, we teach it how to answer the question. And it has got to the point now where we've had to teach it how to answer the questions like, how are you today? Because people have got so used to interacting with Marvis almost as a person, that we've started to make him be polite. I'm not sure it's a he or she. Make it be polite. So this has led to a number of integrations. So Slack, for example, is quite a common integration tool that people use for communication between IT environments. And we can now invite Marvis to a Slack conversation. So the same way as you would ask a network engineer, what do you think of this? You can now ask Marvis in the same conversation what it thinks of a particular issue, and it will come up with a response inside that Slack conversation. So it's becoming a member of the team, literally a member of the IT team. We'll go through some live stuff in a moment, but I just wanted to give you a brief view of a conversation that Marvis has, because then you can have these slides later. But you can simply type in Abby's team call. Abby has a bad Teams call, so Abby's team call is bad. Because we have the SRX involved here, we can look at all of the Teams calls that have happened across the network. And you simply select which Teams call was bad, and the system will then show you the network path from the client through to the access point, through to the switch, through to the firewall. And it will show where there were issues. And there are always going to be issues. That's the new world we live in. So it's showing here there were some Wi-Fi issues, there's some interference, but Marvis is basically saying that's not the problem. Okay, the actual problem that you experienced was on the firewall because it had a high latency on the uplink. And that answer was already provided to you here. You don't have to do the drill down, but it's not just about providing you an answer, it's about giving you the data and the reasons behind it. So a pretty powerful tool answering a complex question, even though it was posed in a very simple way. So some of our customers, some quotes from the customer base. Okay, these are all real customers. These are all either fully deployed or significantly deployed. So UPS, UPS has a lot of remote sites. They're guys sorting parcels. They're not IT staff. So when they had a problem with their wireless, it meant that often that entire location had an issue, and they would dispatch an engineer. So they've taken their resolution down from 48 hours to less than 2. Because they now have data and visibility of what's going on. And often they are getting these problems fixed before they even occur. In the Walmart scenario, 2,500 APs a day are being installed across Walmart. They have an estate of over 500,000 APs. So, it's huge scale that we're capable of with this platform. Gap, another retailer, but they were previously Meraki. So Walmart was Cisco's biggest customer. Gap was Meraki's biggest customer. So you can see why they're not friends anymore. But with Gap, they had a problem with their point of sale systems across the Wi-Fi, and they ended up replacing their Wi-Fi over Christmas, over the Christmas trading period 2 years ago, because it was impacting their business so much. And since that implementation, they have reduced their site visits by 85% across the US, which is, it's huge. ServiceNow is probably the most similar organization to where you guys would sit as far as a carpeted office environment. And they're down from 100 tickets a month to 2 tickets per month. And that's not, it's primarily because their IT staff ask the system every morning who's having a problem. And they go and fix those problems before the end users get around to ringing the help desk. So that the problems are actually fixed ahead of time. And that's something, depending on whether you look to put a system in that you're managing yourselves or put a system in where Mobliciti are managing it for you. That ability to be proactive rather than reactive is what this is all about. MIT put in, from seeing the system to implementation across their entire campus was less than 5 weeks. So T-Mobile 24/6 a day, etc., etc. So there's lots of customers out there saying nice things about us, which is always good. Of course, some people like the Gartner reports, and the people who are the leader of the Gartner reports tend to talk about the most. So we are privileged to be in that position. So I'm going to talk about it. Last year we were way down here in the visionary section. The year before we were in the niche player section. So in 2 years we've moved from a niche player to basically the leader in this market space. The Ciscos of this world are going down and to the left. Their market share is significantly reducing, and their revenues are reducing because they don't have the ability to match what we're doing, because they have to start from scratch again and build this platform. Their DNA spaces and that sort of DNA capabilities are just not catching up with us quick enough, and that's very much recognized by Gartner as well. So in a pretty strong position. There's also Gartner Peer Insights, which is basically our customers talking to Gartner and telling them what they think of us. And in 100% of cases, they would recommend the Juniper Mist platform, which is, again, a great endorsement from our customer base. So rather than just showing you some slideware, we thought we'd actually give you a quick live demonstration of some of the capabilities of the platform. I'm trying not to go too technical on it. The platform has a huge amount of capability. We will get through maybe 10% of it in the next 10-15 minutes. So apologies for that. We can't spend 3 hours telling you everything on the platform. But if there are any questions or any more specifics, we'd be delighted to cover those in the questions and answer section in a moment. So let's have a look at some environments. So this is the Juniper network. This is the Beijing office. We just have to find somewhere where people are still going to the office, and Beijing is kind of the one that's busiest at the moment. So here we can see these user experiences. So these are not massively technical things. These are how long it takes to connect to the network. What's the throughput of the network? Or am I achieving the throughput that I've been specified? How many devices are failing to connect? So successful connects measures devices that didn't get onto the network. Now, of course, if there's a person attached to that device, they're going to ring the help desk. But in an IoT world where you're putting more and more devices on the network, say that the projection device in the meeting room isn't working, isn't connecting to the network, you're not going to know about that till an important customer is trying to use it. Whereas in this scenario, we can go straight in and see exactly which devices are failing to connect. Roaming, moving around the environment. This has been the bugbear of wireless networks since the inception of them. We're now in a position where we can look at roaming in the tens of milliseconds perspective rather than the 1 or 2 seconds it used to take. But we're in the position of being able to see which devices are not roaming, which devices are actually having those problems. Coverage, measuring the coverage all the time. Every time a device transmits, we measure whether it's meeting your coverage requirements. So typically we see in a wireless world, people put in a network, 5 years later, they put in another network. Stuff changes all the time on wireless. Your neighbors change, the technology changes, the client base is increasing dramatically. But also the building, the fabric of the environment changes. People install meeting rooms or put in new walls or large metal filing cabinets. This all impacts the wireless. So being able to dynamically see the coverage changing and this metric right on the front page showing you where there are coverage issues and being able to drill down to what those coverage issues are means that you can actually have a conversation about problems long before end users even notice there's an issue. So that's kind of the sort of the front page on the wireless side. We're doing exactly the same on the wired side. So we're looking for issues, not on a single switch, but across the whole switching fabric, in this case, across a single site, or we can go across the entire organization and drill into all of those sites and see exactly how many of these individual sites are meeting the targets that have been defined for their wireless and wired performance, and indeed WAN performance as well. So if we have a look at one of these in particular, So let's go back to should we go on with some clients. So let's go on to this guy. So here we can see, so there's some successful connect issues on this site. It's fallen below the relevant target. So we can drill into that, go into the authorization problems that we're having, and we can see that it's impacting a significant number of users. We can go into the anomalies section and we can see straight away that there are absolutely issues happening and when they're happening on here. We can drill into the affected items and we can see all of the devices that are failing. And these are failing 100% of the time. So there's a significant problem with these devices. Let's drill into one of those devices and it gives us a nice, easy to read set of text. So your first line help desk can now read this out to the end customer and actually say, okay, there is a big problem on this site. Okay, I picked this site to live because I knew there's an issue. So this is your first line help desk ability to go in there and see straight away, okay, it's a widespread problem on that site. So you can look at this and actually start addressing this problem the moment you get the first ticket, because you can see it's actually impacting multiple people, or you would get alerted of this ahead of time as well. So we can then go into the insights side of things and we can see all these authorization failures that are actually happening. And what the system has even done is it's actually generated packet captures for these automatically. So when you're coming into this and trying to work out what's going on, we can drill straight into that packet capture. I'm not going to go into the detail here. You don't need to turn the screens off at this point, but I can go straight in here and see exactly that the client is being disconnected. I can see exactly who it was. I've got all of that information straight away. So I can see that it's failing at the very early stages of authentication, and the Radius server is actually offline on this particular site. As I say, no one goes into the sites these days, so it doesn't really matter. But that ability to take an individual occurrence and then drill into the details very, very quickly is what this is all about. So that's fine. That's one way of looking at things. But we want an easier way of finding issues across the environment. So Marvis is really one of the tools that's in our kit bag for actually analysing these sort of problems. So if we pick on another site, just go for California, I guess. So here, there doesn't seem to be any red on this site. It seems okay. So we've had Marvis for a year or so now, and it was up here, and you typed in the question up here. But we're literally this morning went into beta on our new Marvis. So I'm going to push the boat out and try the new system. So here we can now ask the system questions. So this is where you can literally, how are you today, and all this sort of stuff, and it will actually, have a conversation with you. We only put that response in because people were asking on such a regular basis. So there's certain things that the canned responses here. So I can troubleshoot a site, or troubleshoot a device, or I can just type in, unhappy users. So show me who are the most unhappy people as far as a network performance is concerned across the environment. And the system will then show us these devices that are having issues on the network. And this was a request raised by ServiceNow. This was their query. They wanted to be able to just type in unhappy users. And this is looked across the entire of Juniper organization. All right, so there's 1,600 access points, 500 switches, 50 or 60 routers, and these are the devices the system has analyzed as having the most problems at the moment. So we can pick on one of those devices, and it will go away and troubleshoot that device and tell us what problems it's having. Okay, so there's a lot of DNS failures and some coverage issues. Now this has picked this up, even though the client is not currently connected. So this is looking at in this case, the last 7 days, but we can go back to the last day or whatever. And it's also showing some poor coverage. So we can actually drill in and see exactly where those coverage issues are actually happening. And we can also see the scope of the impact. So which access points are being impacted, which clients are being impacted, even which operating systems are being impacted. So in an Amazon example, they rolled an invalid certificate to all their Windows devices. We saw straight away there was a huge number of devices failing to connect. But equally, we saw very quickly they were all Windows devices and helped them analyze that and get to the bottom of that very, very quickly. So Marvis is a very powerful tool to allow us to go in and see, okay, most of the failures are on iPhones. We can look on which band they're failing. We can look on which operating system they're failing. So we can see again the particular version of iPhone that seems to be having an issue. So this ability to take this huge amounts of data behind the scenes, and that data is all available. You can look at the data behind it as well. But that high-level analytics and the system telling you what's a problem rather than waiting for the end user to ring in is really the key point. So just to switch tack a little bit, we talked about locationing. We understand the location of all the Wi-Fi devices. So what this is actually doing, this is measuring the signal strength of every transmission we've heard from every device that we've tracked its location. So here we can then drill into the office and see straight away, this is the average and maximum signal strength. This is getting a little bit technical, but you can see straight away as you get into the car park, the signal gets worse. Well, that's kind of what you'd expect. But we can see immediately if there is a coverage issue. So this guy on this desk has lower signal than the guys around him. So this ability to, people get used to not reporting Wi-Fi issues because it's a long and drawn out process. We've done this on so many occasions where we've put a system in, often just replacing the existing platform one for one. And then we go into this platform, see exactly where the coverage issues are that have always been there, but no one bothered reporting them. And then you go and talk to the users and they say, oh yeah, and it's never worked here. We just got bored of reporting the issue. The likes of Tesco have a long-term Wi-Fi issues problem team that do nothing other than look for long-term issues. This platform allows you to get through those, get to those issues and solve them very, very quickly. So that location engine gives us some other capabilities. So we can track Wi-Fi devices, we can track devices with Bluetooth in, and you can see this is the Marauder's map of the office effectively. So these devices are physically moving around the office and we can see where they're going in real time. These Bluetooth devices, these can be tags. These are, if something like this, these are just Bluetooth tags from any vendor. So this ID badge is what we're using internally within Juniper now. So we can understand exactly where people are. And we don't track them by their name, we track them by tag ID. And HR know who's got which tag. And then when they get an issue, we can then see tag ID 24 has been near tag ID 25, 26, 27, and HR do the rest. We don't have to track exactly where people are. But from a visitor experience standpoint, being able to understand exactly where the visitors are, if the visitor's having an issue, those tags can have a button on them. So you can press the button and trigger an event so you can see exactly where that person is and go and assist them. So the ability to understand location in real time and have the blue dot follow me type experience, if that's what you want. So we can upload a map onto a mobile device and they can plot a route to the meeting room and it will actually take them there. ThoughtWorks, for example, have a different model. They basically have TV screens dotted around the office, and as you would turn up at the next TV screen, it knows who you are because of the proximity of your location and tells you where to to turn left or turn right. And it says, "Hi Phil, welcome to ThoughtWorks. Take the meeting room's the third on the left." Scares you the first time, but it's a pretty powerful option rather than people watching their phone to do the Bluetooth follow me capability. But we can break this down into zones. So each of these zones can then be used to track how many people have been there. So if I look at my home platform, for example, I can actually go in and look at the occupancy analytics across my house. So these are all the different zones I've defined, and I've specified how many people should be in each zone. And I can also, I can see when those zones are overpopulated. And I can actually generate an alert. So again, you can, if everyone's got a badge that we can actually track, we know how many people are in each room. If there should only be 4 people in the meeting room, we can actually alert to say there are now 5 people in that meeting room. But outside the COVID world, this is really useful to understand utilization of space. You can actually look at these zones and see how busy they've been over the last 7 days or longer with our analytics package. One last thing on the platform was really around guest access. Obviously, getting users who are not corporate people on the network is a major requirement in your industry. Your customers are literally the guys paying the bills. So we've got a number of ways of getting people onto the network. So I've just set up this little test system here for guests. And we have this captive portal that's built in. We can talk to an external captive portal. We have a concept of multiple pre-shared keys that you can use to actually authenticate guests. But if we look at this portal, for example, really simple to configure. You can change the labels, the text anywhere on the screen. You can put in whatever welcome messages you want. We can put in multi-language support, and you can customize the layout to whatever you want. You can give them the option to opt out of saving their data, all the usual stuff. And then there's an authorization option as well. So you can choose how you want to authorize those users. Typically, sponsored guest access is the easiest one. So what the customer would end up seeing is this sort of portal, capturing whatever data you want them to capture. You don't have to capture anything, but they then enter the name and an email address of the person they're visiting. That person will get an email. They just click yes, and they're on the network. So no setting them all up in reception or signing them in or setting up an account. It's anyone who is on the authorized list of being able to accept sponsored emails can just authorize people as they turn up. So a very, very simple process. But there are lots of other mechanisms and capabilities in there. And as I say, the multiple pre-shared key option is one that some people like, but the choices are very much up to you. So that's kind of the high level bits and pieces I wanted to go through today. So I think if we just hand over back to Shane to do the summary.
Thank you very much, Phil. Did your wife and children know that they're being tracked? Oh, excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, there, Phil. I mean, obviously just scratching the surface of the technology today, but hopefully giving everyone a really good idea of the power of the Juniper Mist platform. So really, as a summary from me, and then we've got a couple of questions, but again, please feel free to put any more questions in there. I think we're all accepting now that wireless is now going to be your primary network. It's no longer Apple laptops that don't come with Ethernet ports. That's pretty much, with all the refreshes going on, that's kind of, the norm now. The demands, it's very, very difficult to gauge what the demands are going to be. But what we do know is when most staff last went to your office, they weren't streaming video. They weren't necessarily, collaborating in the way that they are now. So what's the impact on that? It's definitely going to be different than before. And hopefully what you've seen today is this user-centric approach is coming much more down to an individual user's experience rather than whether your wireless is up or down. And we think that's an absolute, kind of change in the way that we can support our customers. So whether you're looking to manage, your own wireless, and hopefully you can see the power of how you can manage your users better, or whether you're using a managed service, hopefully it gives you an idea of how we can deliver better service to you as well, and actually set service levels on a per user basis. So they might be connected, but their experience might not be great. So we think there's an opportunity here to fundamentally change the way that we deliver wireless and therefore connectivity, both for users and staff. So thank you for listening today. I'll hand over to Andy. I know there's a couple of questions there, but anything else Andy wants to add, and just to get these questions answered. Yeah, okay.
There's a few there. So the first one is a bit of a loaded question that's come in, so I'll let Phil handle this one. Does Juniper Mist support Wi-Fi 6? And the loaded bit of the question, is it all just hype?
So there's two bits to Wi-Fi 6, right? So there's Wi-Fi 6 as it stands today, and yes, all of our access points that we're focused on today are Wi-Fi 6 capable. Is it just hype? No, not really. The Wi-Fi 6 isn't about faster networking, it's about more efficient networking. It happens to be faster as well, but it allows us to support a much wider range of devices as far as IoT type devices. So Wi-Fi devices tend to have to transmit all the time, and therefore they tend to chew through their batteries quite badly. Wi-Fi 6 allows us to tell a device to transmit tomorrow. So it can go and shut down for 24 hours and transmit tomorrow. So something like where Zigbee and those other technologies have been needed to use for gas meters and that sort of stuff, you could now look at Wi-Fi 6 as an option. It also allows us to share the frequency band much more evenly. So it's a lot more like 4G, 5G technologies. So again, what would happen in the old days is if you wanted to just send one piece of information, like an acknowledgement, a single byte of information, you had to use a whole packet, a whole transmission segment for that. Whereas now you can use a little tiny bit of the band to say, I'm going to send this guy the one to say yes, but I'm going to use the rest of that packet to send information to another client. So there's some significant efficiency savings. They will only really come to fruition when all of the old stuff's gone away. Now, the other part of the question is Wi-Fi 6E, which is a new standard, which moves into a different frequency band. And it's going to be amazing in 5 years' time. You know, we are in a position now where there's so much Wi-Fi that sometimes you struggle on frequency allocation. Most of the time you don't. Most of the time we are now so much faster from a Wi-Fi perspective than the internet connection. It's fine. But on the off chance that you do want to download 3D X-rays in real time to 50 clients at the same time, then Wi-Fi 6E is the way forward. But you need a whole new set of clients, you need a whole new set of access points, and you need more access points because it runs in 6 gigahertz rather than 5 gigahertz. So I would say that one is a little bit hype at the moment. It's going to hit the home market first because you're in control of the clients much more in the home market. But it's no one has a product yet. The chips aren't released. It will be interesting in the next refresh. I think the current refresh, no one's going to wait for 6E to be fair.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Another interesting question, which is a fair point, really, is do I have to have Juniper throughout the stack in order to get the benefits you just showed?
Not at all. Literally this morning I was wearing a Palo Alto t-shirt. I've changed, of course. So before acquisition, we were working very closely with Palo Alto, and we still have an integration with those guys. In the Walmart example, they're running Cisco switches. We're actually detecting issues on those Cisco switches and automatically fixing them now. When we tell Walmart that there's a VLAN missing on the Cisco switch, Walmart are so trusting of our technology, they automatically go and add that VLAN to that Cisco switch through APIs. So because it's an API platform, because it's completely open, you can integrate with anything. I'm going to say it's better if you have it end-to-end. Of course it is, because we've got better visibility of the other platforms. But the whole principle, you know, it's only really the market leader who has the arrogance is the wrong word, privilege, I guess, to say you have to buy everything from them. So in the Cisco DNA world, if it's not all Cisco, it doesn't work. In the Mist world or the Mist Juniper world, if you just have Mist APs, well, in the Gap, for example, we fixed the Meraki MX problems, their router problems, by information we gathered from just our APs. So the APs are really the first part of the network that gets you the most bang for your buck, if you will. But the further down the network you go, the added value is more than just 1 + 1, if you will.
Thanks, Phil. Probably one for the sales team, but what is the ballpark price range of Juniper access points, entry level to top?
Competitive.
Competitive, there you go. I'm sure to the person who asked the question, the sales team will happily have a conversation.
Yeah, no, we'll have a conversation. I mean, I don't know down to pounds, pence personally. I know the sales team would, but it's competitive. So, you know, so when you look at the platform, you think, oh, that looks expensive. It is competitive with other enterprise solutions. But yeah, we can have a separate specific chat with the person who asked that question.
Okay.
You don't win large retailers if you're really expensive, right? Those guys know how to cut costs.
And yeah, final one. Juniper Mist, does it support older LAN wired edge Juniper switches like the EX 3200 and 3300?
3,300 yes, 3,200 no. There's basically anything that's currently shipping is absolutely supported. There's some firmware issues on the switches themselves where the templates, the way they actually run on the older versions is just too complicated for us to go back and support the older ones. But if you've got an existing Juniper switch, then there's two ways you can actually bring it into the platform. You can just monitor it, so you can maintain the configuration however you're doing today, or we can take over it completely and reconfigure it and manage the configuration through the MIST platform. But it is only current switches that are shipping now that are actually supported, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, there you go. I think we've reached the end of the Q&A, Shane.
Fantastic. And 4 minutes to spare. So thank you all for continuing to listen. Hopefully you enjoyed it today. I know that sometimes a Wi-Fi webinar can be difficult to fill, but it's been, we've had real high attendance rate today, and hopefully you see that actually wireless can be pretty cool. We think this is. So yeah, any questions, the team will be reaching out, I'm sure. I hope you've enjoyed it and continue to enjoy your breakfast hampers as well, and look forward to seeing you on our next briefing. So thank you again to Phil for taking time out today, and of course Andy for comparing, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, have a great day.